I'm so excited for you to hear from my new friend, Tim Fulton, about some practical ways to grow your business, some things to be thinking about as a business owner, and a couple of different stages and what you need to be doing during those stages. So here's my new friend, Tim. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome, everybody, to Market Mavericks. I have my new friend here with me, Tim Fulton. Tim and I have a mutual friend, and I'm so excited to talk to you. So, Tim, those who don't know you, tell us about yourself. What do you do? What's the business that you have? And what role do you play in it?
Sure. Matt, great to be on with you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a executive coach. I've had a consulting practice now for over 20 years. It's called Small Business Matters. And I work with CEOs and owners of small, mid-sized companies. I also facilitate, chair peer groups of CEOs through an organization called Vistage.
Okay.
And then I also do quite a bit of speaking around the country to these same Vistage groups on topics such as understanding financial performance, talent engagement, and understanding strategic planning.
I love that. So how did you get into the consulting world?
Well,
Uh,
I ask myself that regularly. How did I get into this mess? I was a kind of a serial entrepreneur as a kid, and maybe some of your listeners can relate to this. I delivered newspapers when kids on bicycles delivered newspapers. I sold bumper stickers at school. I mowed my neighbors' yards. Anything I could do to make money. I was just fascinated at an early age about different ways of making money. And so when I went to school in New Orleans at Tulane, and I got an MBA. All of my colleagues went and got jobs at banks and insurance companies and Wall Street, and none of those appealed to me. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So
sure.
came back. I grew up in Miami, came back to Miami, took over what I didn't know at the time was a failing business, and I was able to resurrect it to a large degree and turn it around into a profitable enterprise. And then that was the first of several businesses that I either started or took over. And for me, the fun was the first 3 or so years, either starting something or turning something around, making it as successful as I could. And then I would turn my attention to something else. And then
Love that.
found that as much as I enjoyed being the entrepreneur, I equally enjoyed being around other entrepreneurs, other small business owners. And I found myself coaching and mentoring and counseling other business owners. And then before I knew it, that became a practice. And that's where Small Business Matters came from.
Wow. So then you got into Vistage. How long have you been a part of a Vistage chair? How long have you been a part of Vistage?
Yeah, I was an active Vistage chair for 16 years.
Wow.
At least I thought I retired in 2018, and then I kind of got lured back, and so now I co-chair two groups here in Atlanta. So it's a monthly meeting, so it's not a huge commitment, and then I speak to a lot of Vistage groups as well.
So somebody who's not familiar with Vistage, what's the pitch on Vistage?
Yeah, Vistage is it's the world's largest peer group organization for CEOs of small and mid-sized companies. They've been around now for over 60 years. They were the original peer group for CEOs. And so here in Atlanta, we've got maybe a dozen or so groups representing companies from a couple $1 million in annual revenue up to some are publicly held companies.
Wow.
But it's a think tank of sort.
It's a mastermind group.
It's a mastermind group,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And so you said you travel a lot to speak. So you're traveling specifically to speak to other Vistage groups. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's neat for me, having been a chair of groups for 16 years, to go visit other groups and see how these other groups operate. How do these different chairs because there's no right or wrong way,
Sure.
to chair a group like this. So it's fascinating for me, and I really enjoy engaging with these business owners and leaders, whether the topic is around talent, financials, strategy. It's just really interesting for me to be in a room with them for 3 hours, and I learn as much as they do, just being able to engage with all these different businesses and business owners.
I love that. So as a Vistage chair or as a consultant, what is a piece of advice that you consistently give out?
Oh, woo. Um, One is have a plan. Too often I find businesses, whether they're just launching or they've been around for 5 or 10 years, they're running it from the on a daily basis, just reacting versus having a plan, having a roadmap, something that says this is where we want to go, this is our destination, and now let's figure out how to get there. So that would be number one is have a plan. Number two, it's making sure that that you've got the right people on the bus. Jim Collins is famous for saying that: get
Yeah,
right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus. And it sounds simple, and as I'm sure you know, Matt, it's really hard to consistently bring on the best people, the A players. But the best businesses are able to do that, and they attract the best people. And one of the things that I find myself oftentimes counseling my clients is to not settle. Sometimes if we can't find the best employee, we'll settle for a B player or maybe even a C player. And my advice is hold out, because they're out there. The best people are out there. Don't settle. Bring on the best people.
I love that. And so then in your consulting world, what does that look like? What does that relationship look like when you're working with a client? Is that a year-long agreement? Is that a month-to-month agreement? Is that just you're in a stage where you need to scale and you come in? What does that look like?
Yeah, I don't typically work with startups. So these are businesses that have been in business for a couple of years, and typically they find themselves in one of two places. Either they're growing too fast and they need some help managing that growth, or they're not growing fast enough and they're looking for ways to accelerate their growth. And I've been successful in either one, in either case. Typically, I never have a contract of any sort, because my agreement with my clients is, if it's not working for whatever reason, then let me help you find somebody else.
Yeah,
Typically, I meet with my clients once a month, as their coach. It's a one-to-one meeting once a month for an hour, hour and a half, and they usually set the agenda for those meetings, because I think their agenda is more important than whatever my agenda might be. So we might be looking at their business plan. We may be reviewing their financials. I just got off the phone earlier, and the client's got a hiring decision, and he kind of laid out, I've got three candidates and here's what I'm thinking, and just walking them through that decision, just making those difficult decisions. And then I also make myself available 7/24 to any of my clients, because while at one hand it's important, I think, to have that kind of formal meeting. At the other hand, it's not unusual that my clients will just run into a particular situation where they need 5 minutes, 10 minutes of my time, and I always want to make myself available to them for that.
sure. I love that. And you get to leverage your experience to bring it into home in their specific business, but also you have such a unique perspective with your consulting across multiple organizations, and then in the Visage world, helping chair a bunch of CEOs around. You just got a lot of different viewpoints that you can provide and help a small business owner who's looking to scale or looking to hold on to the scale that they've got.
Yeah. And man, I've made every mistake possible. And if I haven't made it myself, I've seen others. And so part of my job is just helping prevent my clients from making those same mistakes.
I love that. So around here, we love to learn from people's mistakes. So I love that you said that. I've made a bunch. Tell us a mistake that you've made over the life of your business and what's something that you learned in it.
Yeah. Well, there were certainly some hiring mistakes, either hiring too fast or sometimes hiring too slow, waiting too long to get the person that I wanted. I made a mistake. We moved here to Atlanta in 1996, and a couple years afterwards, I had a good friend who was launching an internet company, and he said, "Tim, come with us. Become you can be a co-founder, and you'll oversee sales and marketing." And this was during the dot-com days and
Okay.
excitement around internet companies. And so I joined the company, and what I didn't realize was that the founder, my friend, he was really just interested in launching the company and selling it as quickly as possible, which was not unusual at the time. My mindset was very different. I like to grow businesses, and I had more of a long-term perspective. And so after about 6, 12 months, we there was conflict there in terms of the vision for the company, and I ended up being the one leaving the company. But it not only, I hated to leave because I really thought we were heading in the right direction, and it impaired my relationship with, again, was a very good friend at the time. So there was a there for me there about working with friends.
Oh, that's yeah. Friends are hard, family's hard, business relationships are hard. So, what did you learn from that, and what's been different since that relationship?
Yeah, well, one, I learned I didn't want to make that same mistake again, and that I never wanted to mix friends or family with business, or at least to be very careful in doing that, because there are some good examples of family-run businesses and best friends coming together and starting businesses, but at least I learned to be very careful about going into that type of arrangement. Partnerships are, they're like marriages. The majority of them don't work. And so, I've got a number of clients that are in partnerships. And again, I have to warn them ahead of time that, the chances of success of this are not great, long term. And again, some of them have worked out well, some not as good. But I think I've become far more capable of advising clients in those relationships as a result of my own experience and failed experience as a business partner.
Yeah, yeah. It's partnerships are hard, but it's what you're saying. It's very good to have clarity on the front end, right? To clearly define what's the relationship going to be. That helps to establish that better, to help mitigate some of those issues. So, talk to us. Let's take a step all the way back. When you started Small Business Matters, what was the first 12 to 24 months? What did that look like?
Scary. Scary. My wife kept saying, "When are you going to get a job? When are you going to find a job?" And for me, this was a job, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew I had to be patient. I knew I had to just do the blocking and tackling that any small business has to do, is getting out and seeing potential clients and building systems, within my business, defining success, having a plan and working that plan. So, it was just establishing lots of different contacts, like any small business, figuring out what it was that I thought I could do well, and what is it that I had to hand off to someone else. And that's something I find with a lot of businesses within the first couple of years. It's really hard for many business owners to let go, is to say, "Hey, I should go find someone to do my accounting. I should go find someone to do sales." It's hard for many new business owners to let go of those and zero in on whatever it is that they do best. And so that's, again, something that I counsel a lot of my clients on, is, figure out where your sweet spot is within the business, whether it's sales, it's operations, it's people, and then find equally good people to handle those other areas, to be willing to let go of those responsibilities. And it's interesting that, for businesses, what I found over time is that there are certain natural barriers as businesses grow, that we hit those barriers. It's like a ceiling, and I just can't grow this business anymore. I'm doing all the
Sure.
right stuff, but I'm stuck of sort. And the research is that for most businesses, that first barrier is at about $1 million in annual revenue. And the secret is a willingness of the business owner to let go of some responsibilities,
Okay.
as I reference, is to hire an accountant, hire a salesperson. And then once we get past that first barrier, and you may know this, only 4% of all small businesses ever get to where they've exceeded $1 million in annual revenue. So that's
Yeah.
a big milestone to get
Yeah.
past that $1 mark. And the research indicates that the next barrier is at about $10 million in revenue. So now I've gotten past the million. I'm flying past, 3 million, 5 million, and that next barrier shows up at about $10 million in revenue. And the barrier there is all about systems,
Okay.
processes, procedures, because up to that point, I don't need all those things, right? I'm kind of winging it in terms of how the business is operating. But if I'm not willing to instill some form of organization of the business, I'm going to get stuck at that kind of $8 to $10 million revenue. And again, I see that frequently, and it's fixable, but it takes the owner to recognize it and then be willing to do something about it.
Sure. I love those two different barriers, the million and the 10 million. And I remember when we crossed the first one, it's a big deal, right? I mean, it's just an amazing experience to get there. You talked about delegating, this idea of hiring out staff, hiring out people. But one of the things that you start to get into is the culture of your organization and team building. So what advice would you have to somebody who's trying to break that 7-figure mark? They're starting to outsource. It's getting beyond just them. They're starting to build a team. What advice would you have to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Number one would be clarity around what's referred to as a company's strategic intent. And strategic intent is made up of three components: a company's core values, their mission, their why, their purpose, and their vision. And vision is a destination. It's where we want to be when we're wildly successful. And so clarity around all three of those, because as I start to hire people, the best people, that's what they are keenly interested in, is what is it that we believe in as a company? What are our core values? Why are we doing what we're doing? What's our mission? What's our purpose? And where are we heading? What's our destination? And if I've got clarity as a business owner around all three of those, and I can communicate those effectively, whether it's to potential employees, to investors, to a banker, to strategic partners, then my path forward becomes much easier, because now I'm just saying, hey, here's where we are. Do you want to join us? Are you going to be a good fit? And it makes all sorts of decision making, and all sorts of difficult decisions come up along this journey.
Sure.
And those decisions now become much easier because each of those decisions now get filtered through our values, our mission, and our vision. So now not only my decisions get easier, but those on my team get much easier as well. And all three of those are the foundation for my company's culture, what you referenced earlier, because culture is essentially what is it that we believe in, why are we doing what we're doing, and where are we going. And so now I've established this really compelling vision that becomes a magnet for the best employees versus a repellent, something that's pushing those people away.
Sure.
Now I'm attracting the best talent, and now my job just inherently gets much easier.
I love that. And so the second barrier going into 10 million, we're not there yet. We're going there. What have you found? Is it EOS? That's a very popular management system. Is it implementing something like that, or
Yeah.
is it just we've got our employee handbook and we follow that? Like, talk to me about systems. What does that mean?
It's Matt, it starts with reading my favorite book on small business. It's called The E-Myth Revisited,
Oh yeah,
Gerber. If I had a nickel for every one of those books that I've given away or recommended, I'd be a wealthy man. But that's the best book that I know about how to organize a business for growth.
okay,
And in the book, the author Gerber, one of the things he talks about is, think of your business as a game. right? It's whether it's a sport like baseball, or it's a game of Monopoly, whatever. But think of your business as a game, and every game has rules to it. And so we've got to establish for this game what rules are we going to abide by, and those become our core values, as I referenced earlier. And then we come up with different systems. Okay, how do we sell? Let's come up with a system, a process for selling, rather than every time we do it, it's a one-off. Let's come up with a system, and let's define that system. And then let's come up with a system for hiring, because we want to be consistent in our hiring practices. So let's come up with a system for hiring. And so it just goes one after another. We define what are the most important processes within our company, and let's document, best practice. Let's figure out the best way to do it. And it may not be our best practice. It may be, I may turn to Matt and say, Matt, how do you hire? How do
Sure.
you get all these great people? And I'm gonna use that as my best practice for hiring, and then compiling all of those into a document. Some people call it an operations manual. And if you play football, there's a playbook, and there's a
Yeah.
playbook for the offense, and there's a playbook for the defense. And everywhere they go, they're carrying their playbook, because that tells them how to run the different plays, again, whether on offense or defense. So as a company, I'm going to put together a playbook for how do we run our plays? How do we score touchdowns, as a business?
I love that. That's it's so tangible. It's such a practical. I love Michael Gerber and E-Myth Revisited. That was actually a question that I had for you. So I love that you said that. That is a book that dramatically impacted me as a young man wanting to be in the business world, and this idea of creating systems. I love that. So thank you for referencing that. And you mentioned about turning to someone. So that's kind of the Vistage, the mastermind group, is the idea of mentorship, leveraging other people's experience through coaching, through a Vistage type group. But how, Tim, how have you personally leveraged it in your life as a business owner? How have you leveraged groups, mentorship to grow as a leader and grow your organizations?
Yep. Man, I've been so lucky. I've got a number of individuals who have been mentors to me. And sometimes it's just, picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm dealing with. What do you think?" Or sitting down with them, or sometimes bringing together three or four of them and saying, "Hey, can I get an hour of your time to help me work through this?" And it's the idea that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I never have been, never will be. So I've always tried to surround myself with smart people. Not it's not a surefire way of avoiding, mistakes or failure, but I think it's maybe the best way. And as a Vistage chair for 16 years, so many different times, I'd have a member who had a great idea. Maybe it was a new product, or going into a new market, or a key hire, and I'd say, "Well, Matt, do you want to bring this decision to the group? Because maybe the group, no, no, I've got this. This is going to work." And then, I'd convince them to bring it to their Vistage group, and the Vistage group, by the time they were done, they had, instead of going right, they were going left. Instead of going forwards, they were going. Their whole decision got turned around,
Yeah.
just because they were willing. And it takes courage to do this, to surround themselves with smart, caring people who are willing to say, "Matt, have you really thought through that decision? Have you considered this? Have you thought about this? When I did that thing, it failed miserably. Let me tell you why." And for some business owners, that's their worst nightmare, is to have to listen to that. But for the best business owners, they understand that the power is in the group, and why not leverage a group of really smart people?
Yeah. And just get different perspectives, right? It's this idea of you can have someone speak into a decision you're making that's further down the road from you, that has unique experiences, that if they can shoot holes in it before you make the decision, it's better to shoot them in the holes in it now than 6 months from now when you're 6 months into issues.
Yeah, 100%.
It'd be so much better to be able to get to that forward. So you mentioned your book, which I love. You mentioned mentorship. Talk to us about goals or commitments. We really like to talk about commitments more than goals. What's a commitment that you have within your organization over the next 12 months
Okay.
into the new year, into 2025? What's a commitment and what are some steps you're taking to get there?
It's interesting. I was just working on my 2025 commitments this morning. I do it. It's an annual ritual. I write them down. Same template I've been using for probably 20 years, and I have all my clients do the same thing. And the one that I'm looking at is I'm trying to work less. I'm in the fourth quarter of
I love
sort
that.
of my career, and I'm loving it. I feel lucky every day, and I want to be working a little bit less. So it was thinking through, okay, of everything that I'm doing, what is it that I'm prepared to do? Maybe a little bit less of this, or maybe even stop doing this. And those are always the toughest decisions because
Yeah,
sometimes it means having to let go of a client or let go of a particular offering that I've got. But I want to be doing less. I don't want to stop because I don't think I'll ever stop. I love it too much. I want to be doing less.
I love that. Well, and congratulations to be in the fourth quarter and to be looking forward instead of just saying I'm just going to run myself into the ground, trying to be strategic. And that's one of the reasons that we make commitments, make goals, is to think strategically out the direction that we're going. So if someone is interested in mentorship, in coaching, but maybe their business is too young, is too in the infancy. What advice would you have for maybe some free resources that are out there?
Yeah.
What advice would you have?
I've had a great relationship with the Small Business Development Center network here in Georgia. It's a partnership between the SBA and UGA, the university, and they've got 17 offices, I think, around the state, six or so of them in the metro Atlanta area. And they essentially provide free counseling to small business owners. And I think it's particularly helpful for someone wanting to start a business.
Sure.
They're geared mostly towards startups. And they also work with existing businesses, and I've got workshops and one-on-one counseling for existing businesses. But they hire great consultants, and they've got the resources of a large state university behind them. So I would refer them to one of the SBDC offices. I've also done some volunteer work. Emory's got a really good program called Start Me, which is an entrepreneurial training program, again, particularly
Okay.
for business owners, startup business owners. And it's like a 4-month commitment of writing a business plan and working with groups of other business owners. So I would look for either one of those programs. I think would be really helpful.
I love that. That's fantastic piece of advice. I appreciate that a lot, Tim. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you for the impact that you're having in Georgia with the business community here. But let me ask this kind of final question. I'd love to kind of get to this perspective. What's a piece of advice that you wish you would have had when you were starting Small Business Matters, starting as a Vistage chair? What's a piece of advice you wish you would have had?
Hmm. Well, what's top of mind for me, I've got my mastermind group right now is reading Jim Collins' book, Good to Great,
Good to
and it's
great.
one of my favorite business books. And something he talks about when we looked at all these great companies is that they were all really good at answering one question. And that one question is, what is the brutal fact of my current reality? Translated, what's the one thing that's preventing this business from becoming great? And I don't know how many hundreds of times now that I've asked that question of business owners. What is the brutal fact of your current reality? Because what he found when he looked at these great companies, they were all really good at addressing that question. And it's an easy question to avoid.
Sure.
It requires some bit of acknowledgement that I'm crappy at finance, or I don't understand marketing. But by addressing that question head on, it usually results in an answer, a strategy. And so just being able to I'd suggest to all of your listeners to just take a moment and just answer that question about your business today. What is the brutal fact of our current reality? What's the one thing preventing this company from becoming great, and address that head on?
I love that. Well, Tim, if somebody's interested in getting in touch with you, if they say, "Hey, I really want in the coaching world, Small Business Matters," if they're interested in the Vistage that you co-chair, one of the couple of groups here in Atlanta, how do they get connected to you?
Sure. And Matt, I'm always happy to have that initial conversation with any business owner. Again, if I can't help them, I'll try to find someone that can. The website is smallbusinessmattersonline.com. I've got a newsletter that's available there. I've got a podcast like yourself that's available. My email address is tim@smallbusinessmattersonline.com. So either one of those, I'd be happy to talk to any of your listeners.
That's fantastic. Well, Tim, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad Chris connected us, and I appreciate the wisdom that you shared today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.